Today I will be going over overrated and underrated fighters in the UFC. Some of these guys, people tend to think they're a little bit better than they actually are, and some of these guys don't get the recognition they deserve. So today I'll be going over 5 of each. And yeah, if you disagree, let me know in the comments, and yeah, we can argue about it. First fighter, Kevin Holland. He is in the overrated category. He's a fan favorite. A lot of people like his fight style. He's entertaining. He's entertaining off the octagon. But if we're being honest, who is he really beat? Right? He got ragdolled by Hamzat. Lost to JDM. He beat Michael Chiesa in some fight. Yeah, he's a good ranked fighter, but the way people talk about him, maybe it's not so much what people talk about him, it's just the publicity around the guy. And I don't really think he's that good of a fighter. Like, he's a good fighter. The dialogue around this guy is gone a little too far. You know, saying he could, when he was fighting Hamzat, maybe, I don't know, this might be a tough matchup for Hamzat. No. Or JDM, I don't know. I think Kevin Holland, no. He's just not skilled enough. He's got a granite chin. Lost to Stephen Thompson. And made a decision to just strike with him, which I get. You want the fans, but sometimes you got to win these fights, and he's not as good as people paint him out to be. So he's in the overrated category. Underrated, Benoit Saint-Denis, one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. This guy is absolutely awesome. Now, his first fight, he kind of got brutalized, showed a granite chin, came back, had some good wins. And yeah, his win over Bonfim in July really kind of showcased, I was like, okay, this guy's pretty good. Because Bonfim was a good prospect that people are like, oh, this guy, he's good. He knocked out McKinney. He goes in there and just submits him in the first round. Then goes over there and just, I wouldn't say dominate Moises, but yeah, I would say dominate Moises outside of one moment. And then kicks Matt Frivola in the face. I mean, this guy is absolutely insane. He's got a great skill set. He's got a good ground game, good striking game. And he's got a granite chin. And that's kind of everything you want in a fighter, and everything you're looking at if you're going for who's the next champion. I could see this guy definitely holding the belt one day. And it also helps that he's got a good fan base around him in France. And yeah, one of the more exciting fighters in the UFC, and I definitely think he is underrated. Overrated, Henry the Midget Cejudo. Do I really think he's that overrated? I don't know. I put him in the overrated category because I had to talk about him. He had some good wins back in the day, but I think a lot of people started overrating him before the Aljamain fight, saying, oh, this is the style that Aljamain just can't beat. You got to remember, this guy took 3 years off, and he was 36 at the time he fought Aljo, and still, people are still giving him a chance to beat Merab. Where in the fight is he going to beat Merab? Yeah, he can stuff some takedowns, but that's not how Merab works. He shoots them just to pressure into you, right? And I think over time, even his fight against Moraes, his title fight at 135, he was getting absolutely dominated. Yes, he came back and rallied back to beat Moraes, but I just don't think his Olympic level wrestling, as you would say, it really is translated in some high level Habib-like wrestling in the UFC. And I think a lot of people key on that gold medal into him, saying like, oh no, he's a really, really good wrestler. Yeah, he's a really good wrestler. When it translates to UFC, into MMA, like, I would take Aljo's wrestling over because it's more effective. He can use more of his weapons on the ground. Like, Cejudo's just going to take you down and maybe punch you a couple times. I just think his skill set is overrated. I think he's overrated now more than he was overrated a little bit more before the Sterling fight. I don't think he's that overrated now just because he lost. But a decent amount of people are picking him to beat Merab, and I just don't see that happening. So I had to put him in the overrated category. Underrated. A little bit of one that I was on the fence about, but I was like, you know, I kind of want to discuss it with you guys, see what you guys think about this one. Nasruddin Imavov. Every time I watch this guy fight, it's like, it's slick striking. He's fast, he's fluid. It looks natural when he's out there fighting. Like, I'm not like, oh, that guy just doesn't, like, it looks forced and all that. It's pure. Everything's pure. He's throwing with power. He's throwing with speed. I like him. I really do think he's got one of the more entertaining fight styles that I've seen, just purely off the skill and the fluidity in which he uses his strikes. Now, he did lose to Sean Strickland, and that's, you know, maybe that's why I was on a little bit of the fence with him, and he hasn't really beaten anyone that good. But I just think his skill set and the way he fights it's impressive. And the reason why I think I ultimately put him on here is because I think he would have beaten Ikram Aliskerov. And a lot of people wouldn't have agreed with that. He was favored, but a lot of people, you know, were like, oh yeah, I think I'll go with Ikram. And I was kind of firm set on Imavov. Like, man, like, look, he lost to Sean Strickland, like, in a main event. You know, first ever 5-rounder, and he goes out there and, you know, looks decently well. Doesn't look that amazing, but, you know, he looked good against Joaquin Buckley. He looked really good against Chris Curtis before that eye poke. And yeah, man, I really do. I wanted to put him on here to see what you guys thought of him, but I think he's a little underrated, in my opinion. I think his skill set is better than what he is ranked and what I think people are grading him as a fighter. So I put him in the underrated. Overrated, Brian Ortega. Oh, man. This guy is so overrated. Holy shit, man. Like, I get it. He's got really good jiu-jitsu, but, man, who is he beating? Like, seriously. His last win's over the Korean Zombie in 2020. Like, I'm done with Brian Ortega in the top 5. Like, he should not be I don't know why he's in the top 5. Like, he's not that big of a name either, so I don't understand it. He did get submitted by Yair. He got submitted. Like, yeah, it caused an injury, but it was from a submission attempt is why he lost at Yair. And all of his title fights, his 2 title fights, he got absolutely just butchered. And I know it's Max Holloway and Alex Volkanovski, but he got butchered. Anyone in the top 10, I'm finding a matchup that, I mean, maybe a Josh Emmett. I think he could beat Josh Emmett. But, like, he goes over, if he ever were to fight Evloev or Arnold Allen, I think he would lose those fights. He's going to lose to Yair again, I'm telling you that much. Yeah, Yair is just too fast and too skilled on the feet, and honestly pretty good on the ground to hold with Ortega. So I just don't think Ortega's that good. Like, he's got the good jiu-jitsu, but everything else is kind of meh. And I don't know how he is ranked in the top 5 still. In 2023, going into 2024, he is still ranked in the top 5. And he has not won a fight since 2020. So, yeah, I'm done with him. He might be the most overrated fighter. And I think a lot of people are coming around to that idea that he's overrated and that he shouldn't be in the top 5. But I still see him being matched up with the Yair Rodriguez, where I just don't think he has I wouldn't say he doesn't have a chance, but he just doesn't have a good chance over him. That's all I'm going to say. I had to put him in overrated. And I think a lot of people would agree with me on that. Underrated, Edson Barboza. Man, even at that age, he's still putting on bangers. He still looks good. I mean, he had 2 good wins this year over Billy Quarantillo and Sadiq Youssef. He still got it, man. He's 37 years old. I would have liked to see him fight Calvin Kattar next, but now they book Kattar and Sterling, which I don't know what they're going to do with Barboza. But, yeah, I mean, it looked a little bleak after he lost to Giga and Bryce Mitchell. And maybe they do give him, man, I got to look. I don't even know who they'd give him. I'm looking at the top 15, and I don't know who they'd give him, if I'm being honest. bad video. I just want to see him fight Cater or Emmett. Yeah, one of the two. But yeah, his skill set at that age, he still got the speed. He is still tricky in every facet. He's underrated, man. I want to see him fight again. I want to see him fight Cater. Cater's one of my favorite fighters, and Barboza is one of my favorite fighters. I want to see those two guys go at it. I mean, they're similar in age. Skill set, maybe a little, I'd favor Barboza on the feet, but Cater's got good hands, so, But Barboza is underrated. He's still underrated, still got it at 37, so yeah. Overrated, Paul Craig, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I had to put him on here. I really do like Paul Craig, but let's be real, guys. We all know he's a one-trick pony. And at a one-trick pony, I mean, how the hell did he pull out that submission one-trick pony? He's good on the ground, but is he that good on the ground? Because I always see, but if he's on his back, be careful of that triangle. Yeah, he's hit it before. And now in these recent fights, he's not really doing that. Against Brandon Allen, God forbid he got anything going on the ground. He got absolutely smacked around by Brandon Allen. And I think over time, once people saw how Paul Craig actually fights, it's okay, I get it. He's a good one-trick pony. He's got very slick submission skills. But how often is he going to hit that? He got the with 1 second left submission over Muhammad. Ankalaev, sorry, I couldn't think of the name. And, yeah, sorry, I blanked there. But he got the submission with 1 second left, and it was crazy when it happened, but he's not pulling that kind of stuff anymore. People know how he fights. If you get him on his back, beware of the triangle. Beware of the submissions. People aren't that dumb. Once I saw him fight Uzumir, I was like, okay, I think a lot of people... if an Uzumir type character can catch on to your little tricks, I think anyone can. So unfortunately, I got to put him in the overrated category. His jiu-jitsu is good, but I don't think his ground game is top 5 in the UFC. I really don't. So, yeah, had to put him in the overrated. Underrated, Vyacheslav Borishev, one of my favorite prospects. He's a dog. I'm just going to say that right now. Dog. An absolute dog. He's got sick power, sick hands, sick kicks. I love this guy. This guy brings it every single time. He's a bite down on the mouthpiece and just rip and rip. He's awesome to watch. I think he's underrated. I think going in that Sadikov fight, I wish I had it on record. I wish I started my YouTube channel so I could have said that I was going. Borishev is being undervalued in this fight. I like him in this fight. I think he might win. They fought to a draw. Close enough, right? Take me for my word. But I think he's underrated. You saw it in that fight. Sadikov was like, this guy, he's pretty good, but the people weren't giving him his respects, and now they kind of are. But I still think even more, right? Even more. He's got sick power, man. Sick power that you just don't see like that in the 55-pound class, where he's just flatlining guys. He doesn't have absurd berserker type power like Josh Emmett, where he's just where he just knocks out Mitchell and you're like, oh my god, how do you follow her? But he's got absolute sting in those hands, and he's fun to watch. Cool nickname, Santa Claus. Yeah, just a cool guy. I like him. Underrated. One of my more favorite guys in the UFC. Overrated, Ikram Alaskarov. Can we start with this? I think I'm the only one on this train right now. I really do. And I'm going to die, or I'm going to live and die on this hill. He is overrated. I don't care if you knocked out Phil Haas. I don't care what you did in your last fight. Who cares? Your only known fame to glory is getting knocked out. Knocked out by Khamzat Chimaev. He looked sloppy in the Phil Haas fight before he landed the crisp 1-2. I get it. He landed the 1-2. But man, I can't be the only one who thinks that he's just not as good as what people think. Because I watch him fight, man, and it's yeah, he's got good skills, but it's the way they're propping this guy up. the way you would think this guy would be propped up, you would think he'd be the next Hamza. You would think he'd be, Islam Makhachev or any of the Nurmagomedovs for that sake. But, man, it's getting out of hand. He beat Warley Alves, who, that guy's been around forever. Hasn't he? He's 32, but still, not that good of a fighter. And you're beating him. He was supposed to fight Amavov, and I really do think Amavov would have won. Yeah. You should watch the sequence before he knocks off Phil Hawes, where he's stumbling and fumbling and all over his feet, looking like a sloppy boppy man on the feet. I can't stand the talk around this guy, where they think this guy's God. Literally the only reason why they want him to fight Hamzat is because he got knocked out by him. Are we serious? Are we serious? I get it, he's good. He's good. But I'm going to live and die on this hill. He is overrated. He might get into the top 5, but I just don't see him really doing much after. Like, we got to see more. I got to see more. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe I just got to see more on this, but I think he's overrated. I do. And the most underrated fighter on my list, one of my favorite guys in the UFC, Christian Rodriguez. This guy is just awesome. I love this guy. I think he's got a sick skill set. He got tested a little bit in his last 2 fights, but came out with the wins. So that's always a good thing. And yeah, great guy. I'm sure he's a great guy, man. Yeah. Wins over Raul Rosas and Cameron Simon in the 135 division is sick. Also accounting that he's 26 years old. That's crazy, man. That's really crazy. He does have the one blemish over Jonathan Pierce, which, yeah, he lost. I get it. I still think he's underrated, though, because people just, for some reason, don't talk about him, which is interesting. He could work on the ground game a little bit more. He got exposed in that in the Pierce fight, and he got exposed in that a little bit in the Raul Rosas fight, but I think he's sick, man. He's beating guys like Simon and Raul Rosas, who are getting hyped up by the UFC, and he's beating them. So, yeah, he's underrated. He's sick. He's cool. So, yeah, that was basically, my list of my overrated and underrated fighters in the UFC. I didn't really put too many big names in there, but there are some that I think a little bit overrated and underrated. So, yeah. Comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of these, and I will see you next time.